Welcome to HOA Storytime Central. Keep your boots on for this one. I am standing in my driveway at 7 in the morning, still in my work boots from the night shift, and Patricia Hall is screaming at me with an ice scraper held up like it is a murder weapon. "You left your snowblower running at 6:45, she yells, and 3 neighbors reported the noise as a nuisance violation. I try to explain that I cleared my driveway before my shift ended so I could park and sleep, but she snaps on a pair of rubber gloves with a sound that makes my stomach drop. "I will make an example out of you so everyone learns," she says, her breath fogging in the freezing air. I moved to Bend, Oregon, 6 months ago for a warehouse night shift lead job that pays well but keeps me awake from 10 at night until 6 in the morning. I need daytime sleep, or I cannot function, and the neighborhood, Frostbite Flats Reserve Association, treats everyone like suspects during winter. Patricia is the self-appointed compliance officer, and she has been looking for a reason to target me since I missed the December snow rule meeting. The HOA name is painted on a sign at the gate, letters half buried in ice, and the rules change every time it snows. My record has to stay clean because my job runs background checks, and any legal trouble could cost me the promotion I have been promised. Patricia pulls out a laminated card and starts reading the noise ordinance out loud, but when I ask to see the actual text in the rulebook, she folds it back into her pocket. Rule quote, theater, I think. She has done this before. "The board will back me because they are afraid of me," she says, her voice smug and cold. I notice a bag of sand with a logo blurred by snow sitting at the curb, the same bag I have seen 3 times this week in different spots. Someone keeps moving it, and I have no idea why. I tell Patricia I will file a dispute, but she cuts me off. "A hearing will take weeks, and you already have a strike for your walkway ice patch last month," she says. I remember that notice. A recycled photo from someone else's driveway with a date that did not match the weather report. I kept the photo metadata, but Patricia claimed the timestamp was user error. Now she is stacking violations like a prosecutor building a case. She walks to my truck and takes a photo of the snowblower in the bed. "This will go in the file as evidence of repeat offenses," she says. I ask what repeat offenses, and she smiles. "You will find out at the hearing." Then she turns and walks away, boots crunching on the ice, and I see a dog walker across the street filming the whole thing from a safe distance. I make a note to find that person later. I get inside and check my phone. There is already an email from Patricia with a violation notice attached, dated 2 days ago, showing a photo of my driveway covered in snow. The problem is I cleared that snow 3 days ago, and the photo has the wrong shadows for the timestamp. She altered the date and recycled an old image. I screenshot everything and send it to my phone backup, then collapse on the couch for 2 hours of sleep before my medical supply delivery arrives at 10. The delivery is insulin pens for my dad, who lives 2 states away but uses my address because his mail keeps getting stolen. I set an alarm for 9:45, but I wake up at 10:12 to my phone buzzing with a text from the delivery driver. "Your HOA lady says this is clutter and she will have it removed if it sits for more than 15 minutes. I throw on my jacket and run outside. Patricia is standing next to the box on my porch, wearing the same rubber gloves, holding her phone like she is timing me. "You have 12 minutes. She says. I grab the box and take it inside, then come back out to confront her. "This is medicine," I say. She shrugs. "The rules say no packages left unattended for more than 1 hour, and I am enforcing it at 15 minutes because your violation history shows a pattern of non-compliance." I point out that the rule says 1 hour, and she smiles. I am interpreting it strictly to protect the community. Then she pulls out a tape measure. She measures my cleared sidewalk width and announces it is 31 inches, 1 inch narrower than the rule requires. This is a surprise sidewalk measuring stunt, complete with photos and a witness she called on speakerphone. I cleared 32 inches yesterday, but overnight snow drifted back, and now Patricia is treating it like a crime scene. You are accumulating violations faster than anyone in the history of this HOA, she says, her voice rising. I will make an example out of you so everyone learns. That is the second time she has said it, and I realize she is building a case to force me out. I call my friend Devin, a contractor who plows driveways in the neighborhood and has photos and timestamps from the day Patricia interfered with his work last winter. He agrees to meet me that afternoon and bring his records. I also text the dog walker I saw filming this morning, a guy named Aaron who lives 2 blocks over. He replies with a thumbs up and says he has the whole confrontation saved. Patricia leaves, but an hour later I get a call from a tow company saying my truck is blocked by snow code enforcement and needs to be moved immediately or it will be towed. I look outside. My truck is in my driveway, fully on my property, and there is no blockage. I call the tow company back and they say the order came from the HOA compliance officer. I explain that my truck is not blocking anything, and the dispatcher pauses. Let me call her back, he says. 10 minutes later, the tow truck pulls up anyway. The driver gets out and walks over with a clipboard, and I show him that my truck is completely on my property with no violations. He looks confused and radios his dispatcher, then tells me the work order says the vehicle is blocking a fire lane. I point out that my driveway is nowhere near a fire lane, and he nods slowly. This does not match, he says. Someone is calling in bad orders. I find out later that Patricia called 3 different tow companies that morning, each time with a slightly different story. She is speed dialing chaos, hoping one of them will just tow without verifying. The third company sent a truck, but the driver is experienced enough to check before hooking anything. He radios back and cancels the order, then hands me a copy of the work order with Patricia's name on it. You might want to keep that, he says. I spend the next 2 hours documenting everything: the fabricated notice, the altered photo, the tow order, the sidewalk measuring stunt, the medical supply threat. I also pull up the gate logs from the HOA website, which I have access to as a resident. The logs show Patricia used her master code to trigger a restriction on my gate access at 6:30 this morning, right before I tried to leave for my shift. She trapped me at the worst moment, hoping I would be late and get written up at work. Devin shows up at 2 in the afternoon with a folder full of call logs and photos. He tells me Patricia interfered with his plow route last winter, blocking his truck and demanding he re-clear driveways that were already done. She claimed he was damaging curbs, but his photos show the curbs were already cracked before he touched them. She filed a complaint with his company, and he almost lost the contract. I kept everything, he says, because I knew she would try again. Aaron, the dog walker, sends me a video file that evening. It shows Patricia screaming at me with the ice scraper, snapping on her gloves and threatening to make an example of me. Her face is clear, her words are loud, and the timestamp matches my phone log. This is perfect, I say out loud. I also get an email from another neighbor, a woman named Carla, who says Patricia threatened to fine her for having a snow shovel leaning against her garage door. The rule says no tools visible from the street, but Carla's garage is set back 40 feet and barely visible. She took photos of Patricia standing in her driveway with a ruler, measuring the sightline like a surveyor. Carla never filed a complaint because she was afraid of retaliation, but now she wants to help. If you are enjoying this HOA chaos, hit that like button and subscribe for more real stories. I keep my plan quiet, because the HOA depends on controlling the narrative. If I reveal what I have too soon, Patricia will pivot and change her story. I need her to commit to her version first, so I stay silent and let her escalate. The next morning, I get a notice that my case has been moved up to an emergency hearing due to the severity of the violations. The hearing is set for 3 days from now, which gives me almost no time to prepare, but I already have everything I need. The notice lists 5 violations: noise nuisance, sidewalk width, driveway obstruction, unapproved snow storage, and failure to comply with enforcement. 4 of them are fabricated or exaggerated, and the 5th is based on Patricia's invented interpretation of a rule. I spend the next 2 days building a tabbed timeline, with each tab marking a violation, the real photo metadata, the tow order, the gate log entry, and witness statements from Devon, Aaron, and Carla. I also request the HOA financial records under the community bylaws, which allow any resident to inspect expenses related to enforcement actions. The request goes to the management company, not Patricia, and I get a reply within 24 hours. The records show a pattern I did not expect. Over the last 18 months, Patricia has ordered 32 TOWs, but only 9 of them resulted in actual violations. The other 23 were cancelled or disputed, and the HOA paid cancellation fees every time. The fees total almost $11,000, and there is no documentation explaining why the orders were placed. I also find entries for sidewalk inspection equipment, which includes the tape measure and a laser level, both purchased with HOA funds and stored at Patricia's house. I also find a memo from the HOA attorney warning the board that selective enforcement could trigger a lawsuit, and recommending that all tow orders require 2-signature approval. The memo is dated 8 months ago, but Patricia has been ignoring it. The attorney even highlighted a section about missing funds tied to enforcement actions that were never properly documented. This is the trump card. The financial records show Patricia has been using HOA money to fund personal enforcement campaigns, and the pattern of selective enforcement is so extreme that it violates the bylaws. I print everything, tab it, and add it to my timeline. Then I request a temporary order from the county to stop any enforcement actions while the dispute is reviewed. The county clerk files it the same day, and I get a stamped copy. The emergency hearing is held on the exterior steps of the HOA clubhouse because the meeting room is being used for a private event. Patricia insists on holding it anyway, so the board sets up a folding table on the entry sidewalk as people arrive. It is freezing, and the wind is brutal, but Patricia looks thrilled to have an audience. She starts by reading my violations out loud, adding details that are not in the notices. She says my snowblower was running for 45 minutes, even though the timestamp shows 15. She says my truck was blocking access to the mailboxes, even though the mailboxes are 50 feet away and no one complained. She says my sidewalk has been under width for 6 weeks, even though I cleared it to full width every time it snowed. I let her finish. Then I slide the tabbed timeline across the table to the board and the dozen residents watching from the sidewalk. I point to the first tab, which shows the fabricated notice with the wrong timestamp. I show the original weather report and the photo metadata proving the image was taken a day earlier than Patricia claimed. One board member, a retired teacher named Linda, picks up the tab and reads it closely. "This does not match the weather that day," she says. Patricia tries to interrupt, but I move to the second tab. The tow order with her name on it, the driver's notes showing no violation, and the gate log entry proving she locked me in right before my shift. The board president, a man named Greg, looks uncomfortable. "You restricted his gate access?" he asks Patricia. She stammers and says it was a safety precaution because of the snow. I point out that no other resident was restricted and that my truck was already in the driveway when she locked the gate. The third tab is Devon's folder, showing Patricia's interference with his plow route and the photos of pre-existing curb damage she tried to blame on him. Devon is standing in the crowd, and he raises his hand. "She cost me a week of work," he says. The board looks at each other, and I can see the dynamic shifting. Then I pull out the financial records. I explain the 32 TOWs, the 11,000 in cancellation fees, and the missing documentation. I show the attorney's memo warning about selective enforcement and the highlighted section about missing funds. Patricia's face goes pale, and she tries to grab the papers, but Greg holds up his hand. "Let him finish," he says. I explain that the enforcement pattern targets specific residents who Patricia personally dislikes, and that the fees are being paid with community funds even though the violations are fabricated or exaggerated. I also show the county order stopping all enforcement until the dispute is reviewed. Patricia interrupts and says the board will override it, but Greg shakes his head. "We cannot override a county order," he says. The fourth tab is Aaron's video, which I play on my phone with the sound up so everyone can hear Patricia screaming, snapping on her gloves, and saying, "I will make an example out of you so everyone learns." The crowd goes silent. One of the residents, a man in his 60s, shakes his head. "That is harassment," he says. Patricia tries to defend herself, claiming she was enforcing the rules as written, but I point out that the rules do not authorize her to alter photos, lock gates, or order tows without verification. "The board will back me because they are afraid of me," I say, quoting her exact words from the first confrontation. "Do you remember saying that?" She does not answer. Greg asks Patricia to explain the financial discrepancies, and she claims the tow fees are standard practice. I pull out the attorney's memo and read the section about requiring 2 signatures for enforcement actions. "This was sent 8 months ago," I say. "Why are you still ordering tows without approval?" Patricia does not have an answer. Carla steps forward and tells her story about the snow shovel and the ruler. 2 other residents raise their hands and share similar experiences, one involving a trash can placement dispute and another involving a car cover that Patricia claimed was unapproved. The pattern is overwhelming, and the board looks stunned. Greg calls a recess, and the board huddles for 10 minutes. When they come back, Greg announces that all 5 violations against me are dismissed due to lack of evidence and procedural failures. He also announces that Patricia is being suspended from enforcement duties pending a full audit of her actions. The crowd murmurs, and Patricia's face goes red. "You cannot do this," she yells. Greg holds up the attorney's memo. "We should have done it months ago," he says. The next day, I get a call from a tow yard asking me to verify a vehicle release. I drive over and find Patricia standing at the counter, arguing with the clerk. The authorization paperwork does not match her story, and the clerk is asking questions out loud. "Who ordered this tow?" the clerk asks. Patricia says she did, but the clerk points out that the work order lists a different address than the one on file. "This does not match," the clerk says, her voice skeptical. I step forward and show the clerk the county order and the board's dismissal letter. The clerk nods and cancels the release, then makes a note in the file. Patricia storms out, and I hear her yelling into her phone in the parking lot. The clerk shakes her head. "She has been doing this for months," she says. 2 days later, Devon calls me from a plow site. Patricia showed up and tried to block his truck again, but the supervisor was there and pulled out his call logs showing every interference incident from the last 2 winters. The supervisor confronts Patricia in front of 2 other crew members, and she starts backpedaling, claiming she was just making sure the work was done correctly. The supervisor tells her to leave, or he will file a formal complaint with the county. Patricia leaves, and the crew takes photos of her car and license plate just in case. The HOA holds an emergency board meeting a week later, and the agenda includes a vote on enforcement reforms. I attend with Devon, Aaron, and Carla, and the room is packed. The board presents a proposal requiring documented proof and 2 approvals before any tow can be ordered, along with quarterly audits of enforcement actions and a resident complaint process. The vote passes unanimously. Patricia tries to speak during the public comment period, but her microphone is cut off after 30 seconds due to repeated interruptions. She claims the reforms will make enforcement impossible, but Greg points out that proper documentation and oversight are standard practice. The board also announces that Patricia's favorite fee, a snow storage surcharge she invented last year, has been proven imaginary in the ledger and will be refunded to everyone who paid it. The attorney's audit is completed a month later, and the findings are made public. Patricia ordered 53 enforcement actions over 2 years, and 38 of them were either fabricated, exaggerated, or procedurally invalid. The HOA paid over $18,000 in cancellation fees, legal responses, and settlements. The report also finds that Patricia used HOA funds to purchase personal enforcement equipment and stored it at her home without authorization. The board votes to remove Patricia from all enforcement rules and to refer the financial discrepancies to the county for review. Patricia resigns from the board the next day, and her group post on the neighborhood social media page, where she claimed I was a threat to community safety, gets removed and replaced with a correction from the management company. The final piece comes when the county reviews the gate log tampering. Patricia's master code access is revoked, and the HOA installs a new system that requires 2-person authorization for any resident restrictions. The policy clarification destroys her favorite tactic, and complaints about selective enforcement drop to 0 within a month. I get my promotion at work, my record stays clean, and my driveway stays clear. The bag of sand with the blurred logo finally disappears from the curb, and I find out later it was Patricia's marker for which houses to target. Devon keeps plowing, Aaron keeps walking his dog, and Carla puts her snow shovel back against her garage door without fear. The HOA stops selective enforcement after complaints pile up, and the new board treats residents like neighbors instead of suspects. Patricia moves out 6 months later, and the neighborhood feels lighter. I still work night shifts, I still need daytime sleep, and I still clear my driveway before dawn. But now, no one shows up with an ice scraper and a pair of rubber gloves to make an example out of me. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.